Hello, New Testament students. I'm going to walk you through some of these pseudepigraphic and authentic emails. So by my looks at the forums here, most of you, every group in fact, thought that numbers 2 and 6 were authentic. And then one group also said 4. So you are not quite right. Last year's students did an excellent job mimicking my style, apparently, as I've seen that you have as well. So I'm sure next year's students will have equal difficulty. So what I want to do is sort of walk through some of these things and make particular comment about not only the exercise as it goes for my emails, but also how those might sort of map onto the way that people think about, or scholars think about, pseudepigraphy with respect to Paul. And one of the main things that you should sort of take away from this is the fact that having not gotten it right, in the sense of your communal understanding of what's going on with these letters, is that it's a difficult task, right? That it's difficult to figure out what is genuine and what is authentic, because particularly if someone's trying to mimic someone else's style. And one of the caveats with respect to Paul is that if some of these texts are pseudepigraphic, an author may or may not have been attempting to mimic Paul's style. So one of the big reasons that some scholars doubt certain texts are written by Paul is because they appear to have a different style. The disputed letters appear to have a different style than the authentic letters. And if someone is trying to mimic a style, that's different than if one is just writing in someone else's name and is not necessarily thinking about mimicking their style, as I explicitly ask you to do in the assignment instructions. So email number 1 is an authentic email. This is an email sent to an individual student. And so that's another thing to sort of be aware of, is that when we write to individuals versus when we write to groups, we sort of have different practices. And we might see this at play with respect to Paul's letters as well, insofar as we have Philemon addressed, Philemon is addressed to a number of people and to churches, but the sort of primary recipient is Philemon, and Philemon is sort of the odd letter out when it comes to Paul's letters. So the fact that this is addressed to an individual, this email number 1, explains some of its maybe peculiar stylistic features. Number 2 is pseudepigraphic and mimics my style well, insofar as the greeting is very similar to how, or identical to how I often greet you in emails, and sort of follows the structure of what I do. And as many of you noted in the forums, signature is one way to sort of a strong clue about whether an email is going to be authentic or pseudepigraphic. And as a few of you astutely noted in the forums as well, there are the signatures show up in different ways depending on where the email is sent from, whether it originates in Moodle itself or whether it originates in the email application. So this one was pseudepigraphic and just done really well. Number 3, also pseudepigraphic, which it seems that most of you figured out. This one actually did quite well to sort of mimic some of the cheek that I tried to put into the early pandemic emails. So this assignment happened just a few weeks after the pandemic started in last year's course. And I think I may have even had this might be a copy and pasted line. Stay safe, wash your hands, and don't touch your face. But when you sort of remove it from the context of of that time period a year ago, it sort of changes it and maybe makes it feel a little bit less like an authentic email from me. Number 4 is authentic. It's despite its length. I noticed a couple people said this one's much longer, and that is true. This is sort of a pre-semester email. Notice the difference in the signature because of where the email originated from. Number 5 is also authentic. Again, writing during sort of in the throes of the beginning of the pandemic here. And so, oh yes, this is the copy and pasted line. Stay safe, wash your hands right now. Don't touch your face. And for whatever reason, the end of my signature got cut off there. And that might have been something that happened in my email writing process. But this would rightly be a clue to you that this missing part would indicate that it's not written for me, but it actually, in fact, was. Number 6, which all of you thought was authentic, again, very, very well done. One was not written by me. Just a well done pseudepigraphon with respect not only to form but also to content. This sort of reminder type email is a genre of email that I do write sometimes, and giving sort of specific instructions. So sort of mapping that onto Paul, one of the things that we think about with respect to pseudepigraphy and Paul is not only style, but also content. And so for some scholars, the difference in content, particularly in the pastoral epistles, is one reason that they doubt that they were written by Paul, is that you have a different kind of content, whereas this pseudepigraphic email sort of mimics my content and my style well. And then lastly, email number 7 is authentic, not written to a New Testament class, but written to the Greek class. And again, what's notable about this one is that there's been a sort of change in historical circumstances in this letter, that something happened historically and culturally in the wake of the pandemic that changed the structure of our class, that I had to inform the class about. And one of the ways that there wouldn't be a real good way for you to sort of check this historical data. There's no way for you to know whether or not I lost a TA last semester. If you're in the Greek class, you might know that there's no TA in it now. That might be some kind of historical data for you. But with the case with Paul, we can, in some ways, sort of go back and check historical information, and sort of the historical data can then be sort of a point of contention or a point of assessment for whether or not a letter is actually written by Paul. If something sort of doesn't line up with what we know historically about Paul, that might raise a red flag for with respect to pseudepigraphy or authenticity. So all in all, well done with the creation of your emails, and well done thinking through sort of especially the ways that you thought through them, even if you didn't necessarily come to the right conclusions always here. The ways that you were thinking about them is really meant to sort of mimic the ways that we think about and we judge whether Pauline texts are authentic or pseudepigraphic. And so getting some practice with that is one of the sort of main purposes of this assignment. And you did that very, very well.